My name is Ismail Abdel Halim. As a global community, we want to create systems in order to monitor our economical success. And currently, the most prominent system used is the GDP or Gross Domestic Product. However, there is another index, and it is called the Gross National Happiness Index or GNH. It was founded by the Bhutanese in the year 1972 and was soon adopted as their main economic indicator in the year 2008. Their king believed that there was a better way in order to measure their economy's success. The GNH measures the quality of life or social progress in a psychological way and has much richer intentions than the GDP. GNH is built around four pillars of national wellness: maintainable economic development, good governance, culture preservation, and environmental preservation. In those four pillars exist 9 domains of well-being, which include good governance. That means the country's representatives and leaders would not be corrupt and would dedicate their time and money to better and improve the economy. Ecological diversity, meaning that there would be a variation in the ecosystem, such as a variation in both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, and an improvement in living standards, which would in turn lead to a more content and well-off society. Since the Bhutanese had adopted the GNH as their main economic indicator, their life expectancy has increased dramatically, as shown on this graph. Bhutanese approach to happiness differs immensely from the conventional Western approach, where happiness is attained from purchasing goods and services. Instead, the GNH helps us strive for the pursuit of long-term contentment derived from good health, education, relationships, and spirituality. Therefore, the GNH has become a more comprehensive indicator than the GDP, since it draws upon a broader set of social, environmental, and health measurements. It aims to evaluate sustainability, well-being, and the quality of life. It includes the value of voluntary work, energy, air and water quality, sustainable transportation, levels of health and education, crime and recycling levels, a lot of which the GDP doesn't consider. Although it is true that the GDP is a reliable indicator of economic health, it really only measures one thing: money. It lets countries strive for economic wealth, and truly, those who do achieve economic wealth live happy and successful lives. But sadly, those who do achieve economic wealth only constitute of a maximum of 10% of the economy. The rest of the citizens live in isolation and poverty. Not only do the people suffer, but also the environment, because GDP measures the money being made by the interaction of production and consumption in an economy. So in order to increase the GDP, a country must produce and consume more, and that depletes our limited resources and leads to much more carbon emissions that will inevitably destroy our environment. As Amy Wang of the Sustainable Development and Competitive Advantage says, GDP considers negatives such as gambling addictions, oil spills, or crime waves as positives because they generate economic activity, even if they are unwanted. For example, natural disasters and wars could contribute to the GDP growth since they stimulate economic activities such as increasing demands for construction. We can see here on this graph the effect of war on the GDP. So as it's clearly shown on the graph, when there is a war, the GDP does increase, and does increase by a large margin. Not only that, but GDP also fails to measure costs swallowed by society, such as traffic congestion, dirty air, or depleted resources. It doesn't take into account work that people do for free, from an afternoon spent picking up litter on the roadside to an hour spent volunteering at the hospital. In fact, volunteer work can actually lower the GDP because volunteers do work that might have otherwise gone to a paid employee or contractor. GDP doesn't even account for quality goods. Consumers may buy cheap, low-quality, short-lived products instead of buying high-quality, more expensive, long-lasting goods. Over time, consumers could spend more on replacing those cheap products than they would have if they had bought the higher quality products in the first place. And as a result, the GDP would grow due to the waste and inefficiency. However, GNH has its own limitations as well. It is very difficult to calculate and compare it with other countries, as certain elements such as happiness are hard to measure by a quantified method, because because different people have different perceptions towards what happiness really means. Some people may be happy with one like in living with one in one room with a roof above their heads, while others would be discontent with a mansion. In addition, GNH is only an indication and does not solve the real problems. For example, after releasing the GNH in Bhutan, the country still faces challenges such as poverty and alcoholism. Although the poverty in Bhutan is decreasing, it is still a significant problem in their economy. In my opinion, GNH is a valid substitute towards GDP. It leads to a stronger community where every human being aspires for happiness. And as we all should probably know, when a person is happy or pleased, they are more efficient. That leads to worldwide prosperity. Therefore, I believe we should consider GNH as Canada's primary success measurement. After all, Canada was ranked the sixth happiest country in the world according to Sustainable Development Solutions Network for the UN.